Welcome to another edition of We're Not Doing a Podcast alongside Mark Weber. This is Jared Least. Now, we took a little bit of a break over the past week, and quite frankly, before the movie No Hard Feelings came out, Mark, you and I discussed we were going to go see the movie together, and you told me when we saw each other last week in the Hamptons that you actually saw it without me. So there's this part of me was like, you know what, I'm going to protest this week of no podcast because I was a little annoyed. You went behind my back. You see No Hard Feelings. We were supposed to see that movie together. Well, how was the movie? And can you explain yourself at least?
It was a great movie, and I could explain myself very easily because when I tried to make the plans with you, now movies have a thing called limited release periods. They're not out in theaters for as long as possible. And every time I would reach out to you, it was, oh, could you do Wednesday? Could you do Tuesday? Those days don't work. I'm sorry. I'm not out east on a beach every weekend. The weekends work for me. Those are the times I'd want to be in the AC and watch No Hard Feelings. It was great. Probably the best comedy of this decade. I loved it. Ended up having a great night with my wife. We watched the movie after getting dinner at the apartment. Had a lovely time at the Orpheum in the Upper East Side. It was a great movie, great time, and I'm looking forward to going to the movies again this weekend to see the Barbie movie.
Well, we'll get into that movie a little bit later, as well as Oppenheimer. Now, to kick things off with the podcast, to get Mark an even better mood, in which he currently seems to be in right now. Right now, the Subway Series is going on between the Mets and Yankees, and we're not going to break down the X's and O's of the games because, quite frankly, the Mets are terrible. There's nothing to discuss with them. You're pissed off with your Yankees. But, Mark, all the time, whenever something's going on with the Mets, you seem to be texting me, oh, these goddamn Met fans, will they ever stop? They do this, they do that. I can't stand when Frank the Tank is doing this. It drives me nuts. So I want to put this out into the open to you, Mark. What is it that you just have this vehement hatred towards Met fans? Because I really just don't quite understand it.
Well, that's nice that you don't understand it, but it's really simple. The reason why the only fan base I truly have a passionate hatred towards are Mets fans is it's quite simple. There's two underlining reasons why I can't stand Met fans. One, it's the fact that they seem to hate the Yankees more than they love the own team. For some reason, when you come at the Mets, it's, oh, you can't go after the little guy. Oh, you can't go after us. We never win. But when the Yankees lose the 2003 World Series, a bunch of people have to call a nice 10-year-old kid on Long Island and say, ha ha, the Yankees lost the World Series to the Florida Marlins. Well, by the way, at least the Yankees made it there. And why would you waste your time calling a 10-year-old after a World Series loss, making fun of them for the Yankees losing? Makes no sense. Point number one. Two, a lot of Met fans have this very heliocentric feeling about the world when it comes to them being a Met fan. Heliocentric means that the world revolves around the sun. A lot of Met fans think the world revolves around them. Met fans have this thought that if they continue to root for this awful, awful franchise, that one day it'll be worth it. Guess what? It's been over 35 years and it hasn't been worth it. They haven't won the World Series since 1986. They're not going out on the field and saying, hey, let's go win it for the little guy. Let's win it for the Mets fans. They don't care. They're just playing for a paycheck. The fact that the Mets always think that they're always going to get some reward by rooting for the team for so many years, and the fact that they just have such a hatred against Yankee fans for no reason. When they're not in the same division, they play each other twice a year. It just bothers me, and I've had enough. I'm at this stage where I hate the New York Mets. I know it's really unprofessional in any podcast forum to say it, but I hate Mets fans more than I hate Boston Red Sox fans, because at least Boston Red Sox fans are realistic and don't think the games are played for them.
But when it comes to the Mets, I just don't seem to understand why you care how they do, because you root for a franchise, the New York Yankees, and I get it. They haven't won a World Series since 2009. It's been a while for them, but The Yankees are the big brother in this town. You always are going to look at them as a superior. So, in my view,
But now they don't even have the highest payroll. Doesn't matter. The little brother, feel bad for us. You can't feel bad for you. It's a sorry cause. You have the highest payroll in baseball. You have the richest owner, a guy that wants to spend money left and right, and you still can't go over 500.
well, and when it comes to winning and losing, the Yankees are still the team that wins more. But if I was in the vantage point of I'm the top dog, I wouldn't give two shits about who's below me. I wouldn't even look the other way because I would just be like, you know what? I'm the man. I'm the best team in town. I'm the most successful franchise, but they seem to get in your head.
Because you were in the 1% of Met fans. I told you this the day I met you in the fall of 2010 when Terry Collins was being hired as a New York Mets manager. You had the most realistic view on the Mets of any person I've ever met. You are in the 1%. Other Met fans, there's a 99% that hate the Yankees no matter what they do. And the Yankees have a little losing streak and the Mets have a winning streak at the same time. It's, oh, well, yeah, I guess you should be rooting for the big boys in town, the New York Mets. Ha ha ha. Yankee fans don't do that. Yankee fans don't care. Yankee fans are worried about the division. Yankee fans are worried about the World Series. Yankee fans are worried about the American League. Cut it out, Mets fans. Just growing up on Long Island, I was so used to it. Oh.
But when you keep saying you're worried about the World Series, you're worried about winning the division, why they bother you? They definitely bother you.
Because it's the 99% of fans that bother me. And I just told you the reasons why. Just because you're not that type of fan doesn't mean that I don't feel the way about every other Mets fan. They just love to stick it. Why were they calling a 10-year-old kid to tell them that they won the World Series? And sorry, I was actually 11 years old during the 2003 World Series. Why were they calling a child that the Yankees lost the World Series to the Marlins? It was already heartbreaking. Miguel Cabrera was like under 25 years old and destroying the Yankees. Josh Beckett destroyed the Yankees. It was already enough. And that was the end of the dynasty. That was really the end of Joe Torre era. That was the end of Don Zimmer being with the team, just being this lovable bench coach for a while. And that was the end of the dynasty, the 2003 World Series, when they lost to the Florida Marlins. And then to call my house phone and just taunt, it was not a Yankee fan. It was not fans of another team. It was all Mets fans. And since that day, I've always hated the Mets. Always.
Now, I know this is a podcast and not necessarily a therapy session, but I want to give you a little bit of a little therapy advice. If I was a Yankee fan and any Met fan, not myself, because I am the 1% Met fans, I have the absolute most realistic expectations when it comes to this team. You know what you should do when it comes to Met fans who just come at you and be like, just give them a smirk and just laugh at them and walk away. You always know in the back of your mind, your franchise is always going to be more successful, no matter how
but that's tough to say now that the Yankees have a franchise, have an ownership that doesn't care about spending money. It's nice to say now.
And they're still in a better playoff position than the New York Mets because, quite frankly, this is the worst team money can buy part two. That's what it comes down to when with the New York Mets. Just laugh at them inwardly. But you're always texting me like, oh, this goddamn Frank the Tank. Oh, I can't stand Frank the Tank.
Well, because Frank the Tank is miserable about the Mets every single night. But then when the Yankees lose the playoffs, that's his World Series. That's his championship. That's his victory parade. That's what Met fans are. They're sore losers. They can't stand happiness of other people.
I guess you can make that case. It was kind of funny, though. Did you see the video last night with Frank the Tank, how he's being escorted through Yankees?
Yeah, the Yankees are giving him more class than the Mets. You don't see Citi Field doing that. Yankee Stadium knows class. If there's one thing the Steinbrenners Yankee Stadium know right, it's class. And that's what it is. They're giving the king his praise. As much as I hate his thoughts on the Yankees, the man is the most famous Met fan right now. I mean, it's probably Frank Fleming, then Jerry Seinfeld. That's where we are in the world right now, thanks to social media.
Frank the Tank is number one. And when there was a comedy event a few weeks ago with Pete Alonso, Steve Cohen was not fond of Frank the Tank. That would be my suggestion if I was the owner of the Mets. Embrace Frank the Tank. I keep saying it. I said this to you, several weeks ago? The way maybe the Mets will start winning, put Frank the Tank in the Mets dugout and let him say whatever the hell he wants to the point where it drives every single one of these players absolutely insane to where they just play their ass off and they start winning ball games. And then
but they already see his social media clips and they're not doing anything. So I don't think it would make a difference.
My proposal is put Frank the Tank in some sort of role with the Mets. Have him in the dugout until the Mets win a World Series. And if they don't win a World Series until the end of time, so be it. But you know what? You got to try something different. You got to try something different when it comes to the New York Mets, because you just mentioned a $367 million payroll. They're 6.5 games out of a wild card spot. So it doesn't mean anything. So I would just suggest to you, when it comes to Met fans, just brush them off. Your franchise is more successful. They always seem to do better, regardless of the fact that the Steinbrenners don't spend the money necessary to go win a World Series each and every year the way George did. But at the end of the day, you always got to hang your hat on. The Yankees are more successful than the New York Mets. Now, moving on to another New York team that always seems to have more success than the football team we root for. That's the New York Giants. They recently just inked left tackle Andrew Thomas to a 5-year, $117.5 million extension, while also finally coming to terms with Saquon Barkley, in which he can report to training camp and avoid as much drama as possible. Now, Mark, you and I have always had these conversations over the years regarding former Giants general manager Dave Gettleman. These are two guys he drafted. He certainly put together some good players over the years. Do you think, Mark, Dave Gettleman gets too much heat for his time as Giants general manager?
Absolutely. I mean, I know he hasn't won like World Super Bowls like other Giants GMs of the past, but Dave Gettleman, for as much as a caricature that he was with the ridiculous accent, you had the famous 2020 draft where he looked like a buffoon. The guy knew how to draft. Let me go over some of the drafts that Dave Gettleman had. Just the first round. He drafted Saquon Barkley with a second overall pick. Okay, so there's the whole quarterback situation. You should have drafted a quarterback with the top 2 pick. Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson were in that draft. Yeah, pretty bad. But in reality, they probably would have landed maybe Baker Mayfield if Cleveland didn't draft him. But Sam Darnold and Josh Rosen wouldn't have been worked out for New York, and it's probably a better thing that they did get Barkley. Granted, Nick Chubb was drafted in the second round and ended up having a better career as a running back in the NFL so far than Barkley. Fine. Not the greatest, but Barkley is someone that you mentioned that has been re-signed. Daniel Jones, the second best quarterback in that draft after Kyler Murray, probably better than Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, and Josh Rosen would have ever been for the Giants, a top 5 player in that draft. He signed a 4-year extension. Dexter Lawrence, the 17th overall pick, ended up becoming a top 12 player in that draft according to approximate value. He's not that much worse than Quinn Williams, who just got a monster contract for the Jets and is definitely a top 3 defensive tackle. But Jarrett, wait, there's more. Andrew Thomas, as you mentioned, the 4th overall pick. Granted, he is not Tristan Wirfs. We'll see what type of contract he gets. He just got a 5-year, $117 million contract, one of the largest for offensive tackle in the NFL. Andrew Thomas has been tremendous. Started off a little poorly, but he's been great since. The only real miss he's had, and the guy that really couldn't stay with the Giants, is Kadarius Toney, but the Giants needed a wide receiver. The next great receiver was Amon-Ra St. Brown, who was drafted in the 4th round. That was a draft with Jamar Chase, Devontae Smith, and Jalen Waddle, all selected before Toney. So the Giants really wanted a wide receiver. Their guy wasn't available at 20, so you really can't fault Gettleman at that necessarily. Dave Gettleman, what a heck of a drafter for the New York Giants. And given the extensions that all those guys got, except for Kadarius Toney in his last draft, you could argue that maybe he knew that it would be his last draft and didn't really matter. Pretty impressive. He built the current franchise around those guys, and they made the playoffs last year. Kudos to Dave Gettleman. Who knows if they'll ever win a Super Bowl with Daniel Jones, but he might have got the 3rd best option between the 2018 and 2019 NFL drafts.
Well, everything you said is completely fair and completely true. at the end of the day, everything matters when it comes to being an NFL general manager. And ultimately, he hired the wrong head coach. He hired Pat Shermer, who just simply could not coach. And look, now you see with the current regime of Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll, they've gotten that to work with the players that Dave Gettleman drafted. In the NFL, you have to be able to do everything. You equate it to Joe Douglas. He's put together a really good roster going into this season, but to this point, in his first few years as Jets general manager, he hasn't won. So I wouldn't say he's been a great general manager to this point. And that's where I would go with Dave Gettleman. And also, you got to equate the fact that he was just so bizarre with the media. That certainly.
Yeah, but that doesn't matter if you could draft all these guys in the first round that are getting extensions left and right. Look how long it took the Knicks to get a first-round pick that got an extension. It took until R.J. Barrett, and before that, it was Mark Jackson in 1986. Charlie Ward in the early 90s. It's hard to draft. Dave Gettleman, for what it's worth, he could really draft.
But sometimes you look at with this current Giants team, going into this past season, we didn't necessarily think the Giants had a great roster on paper, in large part because of the drafts that Dave Gettleman put forth. But they had a damn good head coach in Brian Daboll. He was able to put the pieces in the proper place to succeed. Dave Gettleman drafted Daniel Jones, but he hired the wrong head coach who simply couldn't develop him the first few years of his career. It's all about the right tandem in the NFL. GM and head coach, they're always tied at the hip. And ultimately, that's where Dave Gettleman failed
miserably. But Jared, if he drafted poorly, it doesn't matter who their head coach would be. They wouldn't be able to succeed with a bad roster. I mean, if they whiffed on every pick in all those years, from 2018 to 2021, you could be a miracle worker. I mean, Brian Daboll wouldn't be able to work if they drafted the wrong quarterback. Who knows what could have happened? So he drafted the right guy for this team and the right guys surrounding him as well on offense and defense. Kudos to Dave Gettleman. He got the wrong coach, but a coach can only do so much without their players.
Well, changing it up a little bit when it comes to the Giants, going back to last season, do you honestly really think that the Giants roster last season and even going into this season is one of the 15 best rosters in the NFL? Because I really didn't think so. I just really attribute last year to great coaching. I still don't think the Giants roster is all that special. Yeah, they have some good players, but it's not like it's this loaded roster top to bottom. He drafted some decent players, but I do think Dave Gettleman gets, well, look, he deserves to be crucified, in my opinion. I don't think he did a very good job, but I guess you seem to disagree with me on that.
No, I do. I think that years from now, when we look at the careers of Saquon Barkley, Daniel Jones, Dexter Lawrence, Andrew Thomas, we're going to say, hey, who drafted those guys? Wasn't Joe Schoen? Wait, it was Dave Gettleman? Maybe we were wrong about this guy. Maybe we were wrong. I think that's what a lot of Giants fans are thinking as these monster extensions are given out left and right for their former first-round picks.
It is crazy. It's going to be interesting to see how the Giants do this coming season with heightened expectations. You have Saquon Barkley back in the fold. You have Andrew Thomas. You've also added Darren Waller, who's looked very good in Giants training camp. Now, of course, the team that we've always been talking about with sky-high expectations, that's our New York Jets, who just announced a short while ago that Aaron Rodgers restructured his contract. He's taking a $35 million pay cut to play for the New York Jets. Mark, can you even comprehend that sentence? Aaron Rodgers taking a $35 million pay cut to play for the New York Jets.
I mean, the fact that Aaron Rodgers is a New York Jet to begin with is pretty incredible. The fact that Aaron Rodgers is playing for this franchise is remarkable. The fact that the New York Jets have one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, when you and I suffered through Chad Pennington, is the definition of unbelievable. Taking a pay cut, Rodgers, he's going to be approaching his age 40 season in the NFL, which I'm really not sure how that works considering he'll be 40 in December, but math is a little weird in the NFL. taking the $35 million pay cut shows that he wants to win. He wants to be Brady in Tampa. Whether or not that will happen is a major question. As a Jet fan, you hope it does. As a Jet fan, you can only assume the worst, but you can't blame Aaron Rodgers for not trying to make this really work.
And look, now with a lot of salary cap space that he just created for the Jets, go bring in Dalvin Cook. He's still sitting on the free agent market. You still have a little bit of a hole, potentially a linebacker, Quan Alexander, who played for the Jets last year, had a nice season. Go bring him in. And this is also now, it's a 2-year window. He signed a 2-year contract. Maybe next offseason, you monitor the situation, what's going on with the Vegas Raiders. It's clear Devontae Adams isn't happy with his situation out there.
Already doing maybe next year for the New York Jets. Come on. That's weak.
I'm only thinking for 2023, of course, because this is the most hyped Jet season of our lives. But with this window, you think about certain things, but I am certainly incredibly excited for this 2023 season with the New York Jets. And Aaron Rodgers taking a pay cut with the Jets is absolutely remarkable. Quite frankly, when I say that sentence, you actually may think.
I think you're getting too used to Aaron Rodgers being a New York Jet. I think the fact that that is what you're harping on, Aaron Rodgers is a New York Jet. Jarrett, you've watched Chad Pennington be the best quarterback for this franchise. Chad freaking Pennington. You watched Mark Sanchez have the most playoff success of any Jets quarterback. Mark Sanchez. This is a team that brought in Tim Tebow to be the backup quarterback. This is a team that had Bryce Petty at one point as their quarterback. I mean, this team has been an embarrassment for ages. You got to hope that it's not similar to the Mets getting Justin Verlander and Max Scherzer and it not working out. But the fact of the matter is, the Jets built a team that a superstar like Aaron Rodgers wants to be in, and they could potentially win. People are talking about odds to win the Super Bowl. Jared, enough with the pay cut. Aaron Rodgers is a New York Jet. I couldn't imagine this in my wildest dreams.
Well, speaking of wildest dreams and things that we never thought we'd see, Aaron Rodgers being a New York Jet, for all we know, maybe aliens exist in the world. Well, speaking of which, today on Capitol Hill at a House meeting, there was a UFO.
With favorite topic.
Oh, it's my favorite.
What's going on at Capitol Hill?
Absolutely.
That's his other podcast that he does without me.
Oh yeah, my dark podcast that no one will find out about. But there was a Capitol Hill meeting regarding how the government has been hiding information of how UFOs exist. Shocking, the government hiding information from the American people. But so Mark, when it comes to aliens, how concerned are you, 1 to 10, that aliens A, exist, and B, we're all going to die in the near future?
1. I may regret it, but 1. Because for all we know, aliens could have been around for hundreds and thousands of years. For all we know, aliens could have built the pyramids. For all we know, aliens could have been here since the prehistoric ages. We don't know anything about them. The fact that this guy's talking about the past, that he's seen aliens, showing that they're not going to do anything. They haven't done anything. We don't know what they look like. We don't know what they're up to. The Native Americans thought horses were aliens. When the Europeans first came to America in the 17th century, aliens are just probably something that we have not seen, like a bug or an animal or something that looks like a person. But I highly doubt it, because we would have seen them on some camera by now. If they do exist, I'm not concerned, because likely they've been around for quite some time, that I don't think it's anything to worry about.
I don't think it's anything to worry about either, but I want them to exist. And quite frankly, I want aliens to just invade every city in America. How awesome. It would be amazing, quite frankly. Like if you just had aliens fly in from the sky and just.
But what if they were disrupting your flight to Miami?
Let them. Do you see flights delay nonstop over the summer? I haven't flown over the summer, but flights are getting canceled left and right. Maybe if aliens ran New York City and the airlines, maybe the country would be operating in a better fashion. Who knows? You know what? If aliens came over and took over New York City, I think New York would actually be in a better place. They would actually restore some order to New York. So I do think aliens exist. I don't know where they are. I want to find out about them, and I certainly want to meet them. And my concern level is at a 0 because bring them on. Bring them on. The world is
0, but you said 1 to 10. 0 is not an option of 1 to 10.
1. My level of concern is a 1, to get technical, when it comes to concern with aliens actually taking over the world. I'm not worried about it. I embrace it. It would be pretty damn
Just
cool.
trying to get on the good side. Big fan of the movie E.T.
Oh yes. The scary movies as well. The scary movies as well with the funny aliens.
That's your top choice for aliens. We're not going to go with like Close Encounters. We're just going to go right to Scary Movie, a spoof about alien movies. I love Scary Movie 3 when the alien urinates out of the finger. It's a classic bit. Leslie Nielsen was fantastic in that role. So was Charlie Sheen in that movie. Highly rewatchable movie, but that's a different podcast.
Well, I need to get more sophisticated when it comes to my movie watching, because I watched a decent amount of movies, but I'll never be able to compare to you because you've quite frankly watched everything.
Well, when the bar is Scary Movie 3, I mean, the bar is fairly low.
Oh, it's really damn low. It's really damn low. I'm talking about probably the worst movies in the history of mankind when it comes to aliens.
When did you first see Scary Movie 3? Did you see it in theaters or was it a DVD movie at a friend's house?
Oh God, knowing me and the way my family grew up, we definitely went to the movie theater to go see Scary Movie 3 or 4. And I've probably been to the movie theater to see 20 movies in my life. It's quite frankly really sad.
That was a big night in the Lee's household when we went to go see Scary Movie 3. A little steak dinner before, Scary Movie 3 at night, and then called it a day.
Exactly. It's true. But you know what? I got to get more up to date on movies that I'm watching. I'm also getting caught up a little bit, becoming a book reader. Finished up Stephen A. Smith's great book, Your Recommendation. That's definitely a book I would recommend to all people, for sports fans of all walks of life. If you're interested in biographies, it's a book that I would recommend. But speaking of going back to movies a little bit, I'm sure everyone knows about the 2 top movies that came out not too long ago, Barbie and Oppenheimer, 2 totally contrasting movies. So Mark, I ask you, which movie are you more interested in seeing, Barbie or Oppenheimer?
Well, I'm likely going to see Barbie first, but the movie that I'm more interested in seeing, not to sound like sexist or anything, is Oppenheimer. And the reason why is because I actually have a family member that died during the testing of the Manhattan Project back in the 40s. He was one of 4 people who died in Los Alamos with Robert Oppenheimer. So I'm really watching it just to see if they mention him, because he's one of 4 people who died. I mean, that's the type of luck that I have, that of the 4 people who died during the Manhattan Project testing, I'm related to one of them. So that luck has surely carried on in there. So looking forward to seeing that. The day they announced that the movie was in production, I reached out to my dad to see what the name is. I found all the articles about him. It's very interesting, very sad. He died at only 21 years old. It was during an internship. He just got too close to it and vanished. So really interested in Oppenheimer because I've obviously heard of that story for years regarding my family member. So it's definitely got to be Oppenheimer. It's really long. It'll be a huge commitment to see it in theaters, but looking forward to that day. Maybe that's a movie we end up seeing in theaters someday. No Hard Feelings. It couldn't work out, but Oppenheimer maybe wins Best Picture. So maybe that's the one that we see. We had luck with Spotlight in 2016 where we saw that in theaters at Murray Hill. So maybe Oppenheimer is what we see.
Oppenheimer is the movie I'm more interested in because I am intrigued by the storyline. But the main reason why I'm picking Oppenheimer over Barbie, now this is just something that, quite frankly, I'm really scarred from since the time I was a little kid. Now I'm going to give a little history lesson on my childhood.
The Ken doll.
When I was around 5 or 6 years old, for Hanukkah, my lovely mother, Susan, she's the best. Absolutely love her. She decided maybe on the sixth or seventh night of Hanukkah to get me a Ken doll. Now, I'm a young boy growing up, love sports, not into Barbie. And when she gave me the Ken doll, I cried. I think I cried for like the next 10 days. I literally couldn't believe it. I literally couldn't believe it. My dad was mortified and my mom for getting me a Ken doll. It was just a whole Leafs family disaster. How could my mom get me a Ken doll? So honestly, 25 years later, I'm still scarred by Ken. Now when I see Ryan Gosling, like I just look at him differently now because now I see Ken and I just have bad memories of my childhood. So the answer to that question is Oppenheimer. And that's definitely the movie we should definitely go see together. I think it would be a good one. Do you think I would fall asleep though during it? You never know.
No, I've heard it's very loud, very disruptive, very dark. It's no Gravity. I could promise you that. I haven't seen it yet, but I could promise you it's not Gravity, which is probably the first time I've ever seen a person try to walk out of a movie 15, 20 minutes in, which was you, and they weren't sick or a 4-year-old child. So kudos to you on that one.
Oh God, that was the worst movie of all time. But now moving on to our favorite segment of the show, With It or Not With It. Now, it was announced that Hulk Hogan announced that he is engaged. And where did he announce he's getting engaged? At someone else's wedding. Now, Mark, with it or not with it, to announce an engagement at someone else's wedding?
Not with it. And I actually thought about this a lot. And I'll tell you this. I think there's a rule. If you have a family member or a good friend getting married, don't do it within 2 weeks. Let the bride and groom have that time. However, it was his fiance's friend's wedding. It was in Tampa. Seemed very casual as he was in a black t-shirt and a bandana at the wedding. I will guarantee you that everybody going to that wedding was excited that Hulk Hogan was there. Hulk Hogan could have done anything, and people would have been just saying to themselves, wow, I was at the same wedding as Hulk Hogan. That's the problem when you have a celebrity at an event like that. They take over. It's not the bride and groom's day anymore. It's Hulk Hogan's day. So that being said, Hulk Hogan, he knew the attention was on him. He was feeling himself. He's going to announce his engagement at a wedding, as Hulk Hogan would do. Anyone else doing that that's not Hulk Hogan or is not as famous as Hulk Hogan ever was should not be doing that. Let the bride and groom have their day. You only have a day like that 2 or 3 times in your life where the attention's all on you. Let them have their moment.
It's definitely not with it, of course. It's selfish. But I'll throw this at you. If you were at a wedding, wouldn't you want to see the drama unfold? Like, wouldn't you want to see another couple announce we're engaged while another couple is doing their first dance? Like, you know me, I'm all for the drama. I would.
No, because if you wouldn't want that to happen to yourself. Actually,
no,
my wedding, I had someone announce their engagement 2 weeks before, so there's that.
I'm saying you're a friend going to another friend's wedding. You're friendly. You're good friends with the person. It's not like it's a close friend. It's not your wedding, but you see.
I'd feel bad. I would just
be funny
at that point.
It'd be funny.
I wouldn't want that. Maybe I'm a better person. I wouldn't want that to happen.
I would just love seeing all the stink guys from all the different girls at the wedding. You know me. I love the drama.
Most of the girls are miserable because the attention's on themselves anyway. So I don't think it makes a difference.
It would be interesting to see how that would unfold if I was at a wedding like that. But Hulk Hogan, all power to you, man. It's got the confidence.
How many Hulk Hogan movies have you seen, considering that your bar is Scary Movie 3? Big fan of Three Ninjas?
I haven't seen Three Ninjas. I don't even remember Hulk Hogan movies. So
he was in Rocky 3, which I hope you saw at some point. That was his big debut. He was actually in that before he became a big wrestler. So have you seen Rocky 3? Did you ever see his show with his daughter back in the day, Hogan Knows Best?
No, I haven't seen that. I see him on TV. I don't know. I'm not a big enough Hulk Hogan fan to know what I've seen him in and what I haven't seen him in. So Hulk Hogan, all the power to you. Maybe
Not a Mr. Nanny fan either. I'm just going through the Hulk Hogan filmography right now.
Yeah, well, I guess not. Hulk Hogan, all the power to you. Maybe think of some other people before yourself next time, which is something Mark and myself always like to do. We always put others before ourselves. And that's all the time we have on this edition of We're Not Doing a Podcast. For Mark Weber, this is Jared Lee signing off. Have a good night. We'll see you next week.